Yo, yo, yo. Welcome, Ram fans. This is Steve Ivy. Welcome to Monday Morning Cup of Coffee, the Tuesday edition, a day late, definitely not a dollar short. I'm here with co host Marty Lenz. Marty, how are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you?
I am good. It was a great weekend. We both got to go to two different places, two different results. I got to go to Chicago and see CSU win the men's basketball team with a nice win over Loyola of Illinois. Of course, you got to go to Albuquerque and experience a tough loss to the New Mexico Lobos with the CSU football team as the color commentator for the CSU radio broadcast. How was your trip to Albuquerque? Tell us about it.
I mean, everything was great except for the result. I mean, everything up until that point, and even during the game, we're like, we can pull this off. We can do it. It was a nice trip. The weather in Albuquerque, what do they call it? Chamber of Commerce weather was fantastic. It was lovely. The fans there are great. It was great, but they really wanted to beat us, and they did because they know we're leaving the conference. So there was a little extra juice with that. But at the same time, CSU came, did some good things, a little slow to warm things up offensively, but the defense showed up. I mean, the defense was there creating turnovers. And, we exposed a lot of New Mexico's vulnerabilities, but like we talked about, there's just little to no margin for error for this Colorado State football program. The way things are now, they got to play a near perfect game to win. And they didn't play perfect. And in many ways, gave back all the opportunities that New Mexico was giving us in the process to try to win that game. So it was disappointing. I mean, if there was a positive, I mean, I think we saw some great maturation with the young quarterback, Darius Curry. I think he looked good, but he also looked like a young guy throwing a few inopportune picks, but making a nice drive down the field to get the game within a score. So I mean, there's some things there, but there's a lot of work to do, but otherwise the weekend was great. I mean, hanging with Marty and Brian and Eric and the team and seeing everybody, it's always fun. It's just, I always remark about how professional they are, but just good people to be around and hang around. So
It's we're all of course on pins and needles, waiting to find out what the next step is in terms of a head coach. We start seeing things happening around Division One football. James Franklin at Virginia Tech. Darn, we missed out on James Franklin, huh? Are you hearing any rumors behind the scenes?
Oh, I'm hearing rumors. It's not behind the scenes, but it's chatter in the usual social media channels. But I will say this: the New Mexico fan base and some of their administration are highly sensitive about Coach Jack, whose name has been rumored for some programs in court, including around Colorado State. Not by any of the administrators or anybody I think really in the know, but his name is floated, and so a lot of people I could hear in the background saying, "Oh, why would Eck leave to go to Colorado State where he can build what he wants here, and there's less pressure or whatever else." So I know they're highly sensitive, and I get it because they've had a one and done coach in the last year with Mendenhall going to Utah State. I think where I give New Mexico credit is they're very self aware of their program and what it lacks and what it needs to do. So they have no delusions of grandeur, but they are sensitive, knowing, well, gosh, if we get guys that are building something here, but can take more money with, an operation that is a little better facilities and investment, they're concerned about that. But getting back to your main point, no, I haven't, you hear all kinds of names thrown out there. I mean, I heard Tim Pluff of UC Davis. I've heard Coach X's name. I've heard, about, Coach Skipper, UCLA. I mean, there's a lot of names, Billy Gonzalez, but these are just all people on the social platforms, as just throwing out names. And it's like anything else. You put out, it's scattershot. You just put out these names and you hope to hit the target. But, who knows? I mean, to Colorado State's credit, they've been pretty tight-lipped about what is going on and what the processes are.
Yeah, of course, we went through the change in the basketball program in the spring, and that happened a little differently and a lot differently when your coach leaves for a lifetime goal, a job, a dream job, and you have a person in on the staff already that is the perfect replacement, and things happen so quickly. They happened within days, and it was exciting because it happened so fast, and then it was exciting because all of a sudden you start building a staff, and we had a few people stay, not just Ali named head coach, but we had a few people that were very important people in the program, and I'm about to bring one of them on, Tim Shelton. Tim, come on. Tim's been in the background waiting to come on. Here's Tim.
Hey, Coach.
One of the great joys of the spring, and I remember sending Tim a text when I heard the news, was Tim Shelton is staying. Tim, it is so exciting. First of all, it's exciting to have you here this morning. Last but not least, right?
Hey, I'll take it. I enjoy it. I'll take it.
But you stayed with the program, and I was excited. I know a lot of the people inside CSU were excited, not just because of your experience on the basketball side. You got a lot of great experience, but it's because of the person you were. From your perspective, was there any thought given to leaving, or were you excited to stay with Ali?
I mean, there's always thought in general. Just our business, it just moves different, So no matter what you're sitting there thinking or hoping, all you can do is put yourself in a position to have value, and hope that the relationships that you've developed and tried to maintain, those people see you as someone they want on their staff. And I've always had a good relationship with Ali. He's the first person I met with when I came here, to do my visit of sorts and decide if I was going to come here from Oregon State. And, from the first week of working with him, I knew he was going to be a head coach. I had a feeling it would be quicker than later. And obviously this is what happened. So I also thought Fort Collins was a great fit for me in general in the University of Colorado State. So I've loved every moment of being here. Obviously winning helps. But when he got the job, I was really excited, to have the opportunity to stay on specifically with him.
Coach, when you have a transition and a change with a head coach, is the continuity piece, is it more difficult to keep the players and those pieces in part, or continuity with the coaching staff? I don't know if you could evaluate one being greater than the other, but what is the more difficult transition, keeping the continuity with the coaches or keeping the team cohesion together?
That's a great question. It's kind of silly, but equally both. I think the fortunate part for myself, for Ali, for Ken DeWeese, is that we all knew each other very well. And that Ken and myself knew what Ali would be looking for in terms of the recruitment aspect of things on the floor, in terms of the character that we look for, in terms of how we go about that process and communicating that stuff on the fly in between moments. The pace of the transfer portal is quick, and it moves. So having an idea and being aware of exactly what type of young men we wanted, having some leverage behind our season and Nick Clifford being in the headlines and et cetera, I did think set us up for success that way. I think Ali had a good feel for who he wanted to hire as well, which allowed things to move quickly. So it was just a matter of recruiting the staff and the guys that we wanted, so that we had more hands on deck in terms of bringing in the players and trying to help them understand what that looked like.
You talk about the staff and Ali retaining both you and Ken DeWeese. Of course, I had Ken on a couple of weeks ago. You today, two very important pieces from the previous staff. But Ali was pretty decisive and went out and got some darn good experienced coaches in Jimmy Foster and Dave Pilipovich and a young whippersnapper in Cole Gentry, and built a staff quickly. And I wanted to ask you, from a chemistry perspective. So we talk about, with college basketball, with the portal and so many new teams being formed, it's tough to get a team to launch really, really quickly. But are the same challenges there in terms of building the chemistry with the staff, not just the day-to-day practice behind the scenes stuff, but also the in-game and how the coaching staff interacts? Are there challenges there as well, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, there are always challenges. You've got people coming in from different places and different levels of how they've operated, and different terminology and different pace, of practice, or different types of styles in terms of how we meet and get organized for practice. So I think we have an all-star group of staff, and when you put good talent together, when you put guys that want to win together and they're competitive, obviously there's moments of healthy debate, in between all of that. But finding your chemistry takes time, and I do think by design. Again, Ali did a nice job hiring the group, and everyone's very different, and we're all working together to understand how we operate, when we're relaxed and when intensity picks up a little bit. But it's been smooth so far, and a lot of growing pains for everybody, but they're good growing pains. They feel good.
Speaking of growth, Coach, has your role changed with this new staff? My analogy, and I asked Coach DeWeese this because there's been an ascension of one of the assistants to head coach. Does everybody, in a sense, for lack of a better term, move up a chair? Were you assigned new roles, have more responsibility under this new staff?
Yes and no, because I'm familiar, so naturally I should be able to take on things that other people aren't familiar with yet and take that stuff off of Ali's plate. He has to spend time and energy in other places now, do a lot of more administrative things. So it's not like it was written down for me, but there are things that I'm doing that I wasn't doing last year, that are helping to take things off of Ali's plate. Same with Coach DeWeese. And there are things that some of the guys that are newer are doing that are taking things off Ali's plate as well, that they just are learning quickly, So in terms of a title, no. In terms of how I feel on a day-to-day, sometimes, for sure. But either way, it's just about trying to help as best you can, trying to be as sharp as you can, trying to make sure you're as efficient as you can be. And then you're communicating, in between to say, hey, this is why we do certain things, or, hey, this is really good that we didn't realize that we maybe needed from someone else. Let's add that to what we do and let's build on it. So, every year you get better, hopefully. I feel like I have. I feel like I've grown a lot. And just knowing that I've worked for a first-time D1 head coach before, referring to that experience as well and saying, what can I maybe project and anticipate that I can maybe get ahead of for my boss's sake,
So you have a brand new, not entirely brand new team. You retained three big men, and Ali made a big deal about how important it was to maintain the three big men, how important it was to hit the ground running with those guys. And a couple of red shirts stayed behind, John McConan and Darnez Slater. But you're essentially a new team. When you first saw this group of players out of the portal and the freshmen, what were your first impressions of what you thought you'd had in front of you as an assistant coach?
I really just thought that we had the right group of young men, and that's the main thing. Is like, you obviously try to evaluate talent and fit, but for us, a huge part of fit is the personality types. We want young men that feel like they're coming in and trying to be about something bigger than themselves, and it's challenging to evaluate that nowadays. There's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of different intention. There's a lot of guys that maybe prefer to make more money elsewhere, or maybe they're just shopping themselves around. So try to avoid things of that nature, and really stick to your guns on some feel, some IQ, some character stuff, and then you really try to deep dive for the kids that you're further down the line with. So I feel like we did a nice job with that. And when we finished the recruiting class, I felt like we believed in the type of young men we had coming into the program once again. And those were kids we wanted to get to work with. And obviously June and July showed that. One of the hardest working groups I've ever been around.
To follow up on Steve's question, Coach, because I have a tendency to, I'm a firm believer in the analogy, for chemistry over biology. Obviously, you have to have talent. You have to have great players. But do you get the sense that if you have the right chemistry on a team, a lot of times that can overcome, if you want to say, certain talent deficiencies that you may lack?
I definitely think that's the truth, what you're saying. But nowadays, you have to get as close to both as you can. Because, when you look at some of these preseason rankings, and I've never been all the way certain on how they voted on that stuff, but it seems like they're trying to go off of talent on paper, in terms of how they vote and stuff like that more often than not. So with us, we absolutely do not jeopardize. You're not going to take the talent over the character, but you darn sure better come close, and they both better be really, really good.
Yeah, speaking of when we talk about the chemistry, I want to start getting into, how the team has started this year and start getting into the game that was played on Sunday. The chemistry offensively seems to have really developed, probably faster than the chemistry defensively. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think a lot of that is just because of the focus of Ali initially just trying to get people comfortable in the system, and then from the defensive side, I thought the first three games there were splotches here and there of guys playing well individually, but the connected part didn't seem to be there. And I thought the game on Sunday, and of course, the reason I was excited to have you here today was you had the defensive scout. And I thought for the first time in the first half this year, we saw a defense that was really starting to look connected, holding Loyola to 21 points. I don't think they had a field goal the last 7.5 minutes. They had made threes early, and all they were doing was shooting free throws the last 7 or 8 minutes of the half. Could you feel, number one, things start coming together just from an overall perspective, and number two, how well they executed against the game plan that you put together for them defensively?
Yeah, I could definitely, tell that this group was coming on. And, with defense, it's obviously there's effort, there's being connected like you're talking about. We're not young this year, which is nice. With that comes guys that are familiar with different terminology and concepts, that it just takes time to change those habits. And we do such a wonderful job trying to stick to our base. And our guys continue to learn how to play within the gray area of our base defense. And, we had some really nice practices leading up to this game against Loyola Chicago, and our guys are really focused, and it seemed like there were more clarity. There was more clarity as a group in terms of where guys are supposed to be, how they're supposed to communicate, what level of physicality they're supposed to have in certain actions, how to continue to fly around and help each other and what verbiage that comes with that. So our hand activity, things of that nature, our box outs. So I really thought the guys focused in on the game plan. You could see it in practice coming. You could see it last week as well. The film sessions are showing it. The guys, how they communicate at practice, and their energy towards each drill is continuing to rise. So it's coming. It takes time, and we're ahead of last year's team, I think, a little bit. Last year we had great individual defenders, Nick Clifford, Ethan Morton, Jalen Lake. Those guys could really do a lot individually on the ball, and you take that for granted sometimes, and you got guys that just can go win the matchup consistently. And now we've got guys that are taking that challenge who just need to understand a little bit of nuance and need some more games under their belt as well.
Coach, I didn't get a chance to look at the box score of the last game, but Steve and I have talked often. Steve and I take a lot of my basketball cues from him, but just in general, I'm impressed with the fact that you've got a lot of guys in rotation. I mean, there's been times you paid 10, 12 guys. Does the bench eventually shorten as you get further in the season? Is this a chance for you to get everybody on the floor? And that gets to that chemistry piece. Is it sustainable to be able to play all the guys and keep that chemistry and keep that vibe and feel you guys have going right now?
We've talked about one of the strengths of this team being its depth. And that's one of the biggest challenges is when you feel that way and guys are producing that way, to continue to try to make those healthy decisions and keep guys confident and prepared. Ollie's done a wonderful job of that so far, just keeping guys' mind right and keeping guys focused on the process of development and an opportunity, being ready when their number is called. And I think everyone's taken the challenge. So in terms of, maybe the rotation changing or playing one less guy or two less guys, I don't know if I can give you a sound answer to that. It's going to happen how it happens when it happens. So I think continue on the path we're on with just continue to prepare guys to be successful when they're on the floor, and then make those decisions when the time comes.
Tim, of course, you've been without the first 4 games without the player who was penciled in to be your starting 5, Rashawn Mbemba. Tell me what you think he'll bring. I know I think he might be coming back as early as Friday, if not battle for Atlantis the following week. What will he bring in terms of just overall play, but especially on the defensive side of the ball?
Rashawn is our best communicator, and we all know how big that is in any sport. So he's very much so aware of his leadership role on the defensive end. And in huddles, you hear it and you feel it. When he's out there, you hear it and you feel it. He's our most physical player. Obviously, he's a guy that's not necessarily a rim protector, but he's an anchor, for our defense. He's one of our best perimeter defenders. And when he switches out on the smaller guys in ball screen coverage, bigger guys don't move him very much and smaller guys don't really go by him. So we know that, his presence, his physicality, his leadership, his voice, and his intensity is going to add an element that our defense needs. So just looking forward to getting him back and getting going. But he's been wonderful, since he's been on the sideline. He's still coaching on the fly. He's still bringing leadership. He's still involved in every single drill, which obviously is not a surprise, when you get to know him and his personality and how much he cares about this team and winning. So looking forward to getting him back out there for sure.
I like the big nickname, the Big Strudel is what I call him. Here's the interesting thing, Coach. 2 things pop out to me on this. one, you never want to have your guys hurt or one of your best players hurt, but it hasn't been kind of a gift to get other guys into the rotation. And then secondly, again, I'm out of my depth, and I'm curious, is there a lineup out there where you have Kyle Jorgensen and Rashad Bat both out there, almost like a twin tower kind of feel with this Colorado State squad?
Yeah, we've talked about different lineups that way, and I wouldn't say it's a blessing in disguise, but it is, again, opportunity, for guys to get out there, and there are more minutes available because of that. Yeah, we've absolutely talked about playing those guys together. The beauty of it is they can both defend on the perimeter and inside, and they can both operate on the perimeter and inside. They're both thinkers, they're both movers. They understand our offense because they're returners. So part of their development this summer was playing different positions and getting a feel for how to be functional out there, operational out there, and efficient out there. They're still going to be doing similar things, just like Kyle does when he plays the four sometimes, where he's shooting the three, he's cutting, he's spacing, he's understanding when to post versus when to play off the other big who's in the paint. Rashawn's capable of the same things. So we've tested that out, since the first year he's been here, and more so this summer as well. So looking forward to seeing how that looks and what moments we choose to do it.
Tim, you work for people that don't know, Tim works a lot with the big men, and we've obviously seen the development of Kyle Jorgensen. It's pretty interesting when the guy who's penciled in as your backup five wins the first Mountain West Player of the Week award. That says a lot about the depth. But I want you to talk about what you're seeing out of Carey Booth so far, because from my perspective, from a fan perspective, we're seeing a guy really develop into a true power forward as opposed to a stretch four. Can you talk about Carey and what you've worked with him on and what you're seeing on the court so far?
Man, I mean, Carey Booth is a wonderful young man. If you know his background a little bit with, his father being an NBA and being a GM in the NBA, and him just being around the game of basketball since he's young, he knows basketball. And he's a little bit more on the quiet side, but when you get to know him, he opens up. He loves hoop. He loves being in the gym. He loves getting workouts in. He loves film. And that's part of why he's gotten so much better. He's been a little bit of a journeyman so far with starting at Notre Dame and then going to Illinois. And, we thought we had a chance at him last summer. And he decided to go to Illinois, good team, went to the NCAA tournament, all that good stuff, but didn't have the role that he was looking for. Didn't get on the floor very much. So with us, he wanted to get back to a place that really believed in him, that believed in the process of getting better, and that was going to spend the time. And that's exactly who we are. We're a development program. And he's been awesome. I'm telling you, just to see him smile more and more every day and interact with our group more and more every day has been a pleasure. But from a basketball standpoint, just seeing him grow his fundamentals, seeing him take film and ask questions and soak that stuff in and obviously take huge jumps every single week. His poise in the paint, his ball handling, his passing, his decision-making, you seeing how he processes in different areas on the floor. He's been really impressive, to go along with his frame and his athletic ability. He's a guy that if he continues to stack days, you're going to see someone special by the end of the year. And he's already shown flashes of that.
You said something that sparked interest in me. It's unreal to hear you say Colorado State's a developmental program, because it almost seems like anymore, and better than most coaches, it's a plug and play anymore. You try to get the talent rotated. I like the development. Also, the other thing I like about the young Booth, he's a Colorado kid. I wonder how important it is. And look, you want to get the best players wherever they're located, whether it's Florida, Washington, Guam, it doesn't matter. But how important is it to get local kids that understand Colorado State, that understand the nuances, the leagues, the rivalries we have with teams? I would think that's very important to get kids, because there's that want-to saying, I'm playing for my state university.
Yeah, it's tremendously important. It's a priority of ours, when it comes to our recruiting. And it's interesting how it happens. Obviously the best kids in the state, you always want those kids, and you always try to get them to stay home. But a lot of people want them as well. I think a notch to our program is that, we've elevated ourselves in terms of the perception, in terms of an identity that allows the young men in the state to see us as a program that will get them better, that can help them reach the highest level, that they can really enjoy the process, that they can get better and will get better, that their family can be around to see it, and that the community, will endear themselves to them because they are our own. That's a big deal for us, and Ali has made sure to try to let people know. Since I've been here, though, he's always emphasized it and really valued it.
Marty, before we let Tim go, I have a question. One of the comments, one of our regular viewers, I want Tim to answer this. Jake, with also curious how many tricks you have up your sleeve for later in the season. Seems the defense so far has been straightforward but effective. What kinds of things what might we see out of CSU in the future, Tim, on the defensive side?
I'm going to tell you everything very, very detailed. That way, if anyone watches,
Yeah, give everybody the scout, baby. The reverse scout.
I can't give it all away. If you remember last year, we did have some moments where we would go zone or we would change things up, and after timeout situations and maybe after a free throw. So there's some things we haven't really done or tried yet that we've worked on in practice. There's still some concepts that we're talking about in terms of this group and playing bigger and playing smaller because of the dynamics of different lineups that we can play as we piece things together. So all I can say is that we have a few tricks in the full court and in the half court in terms of matchups, in terms of how we switch things, in terms of how we zone things up, in terms of hybrid versions of both of that. So just looking forward to the moments that we put that in there for the right opponent, but we try to keep that stuff as private as we can. So know that we've got some things up our sleeves, but I won't give too much detail because we do have a tournament coming up here this week. So
there we go. Marty, what you got for Tim before he goes?
I was going to say, because I love being able to say this, we're defending champs of this league. Like I'm a part of the squad, but already, Coach, you're going to have a target on your back because you are the defending champs. You're also going to have the double target of playing teams that knowing that, and I had this past weekend in New Mexico calling the football game, they're going to want a shot at you guys because you're leaving the league. Does that give you guys extra impetus, or do you realize and that you're going to get everybody's best shot this year?
Yeah, I mean, for the team that was picked preseason 7th, that's kind of funny to hear, but it's about us, long story short, and we respect our opponent, but it's about our standard. And at the end of the day, how we work, is how we're going to perform. So our guys know that. Our guys know that it's about what happens within our locker room, within Moby when we're practicing, and within our film sessions and how we hold each other accountable. So that part will be fun. We're all competitive. We're looking forward to those moments. But it's about Ram basketball and how we prepare, to be successful more than anything.
Very good. Well, Tim, I'm going to let you go. We've done our 20 minutes. Thank you for coming on. It's nice to see you got a beauty sleep on Sunday night, Monday morning, and looking fresh on Tuesday. But
hey,
thanks so much for joining us. I will be by practice, and we will be bringing you a wonderful, nice Yeti coffee mug. Marty has yet to get his. I haven't run into him. I have to figure out a way to touch bases with him. Deweese and Ali have theirs, and so we'll be dropping one off at practice sometime this week. But thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you on. We'll have you on again.
Appreciate you. Good morning, you guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Go Rams, baby.
Go
Rams, you bet. See
All
ya.
right.
Tim is I find him extremely, he's not just a talented coach in terms of, he coaches the defense. He's got the San Diego State pedigree. He's got the Fresno State with Justin Hudson defensive pedigree. He was a very, very talented player, but I find him, he's a head coach in making, Marty. I really believe that. He's so thoughtful in terms of his answers. He communicates
all these guys.
so well.
I mean,
and I think the world of Tim Shelton, and I know there's a head coaching job in the future. I just hope he stays here. He's been here 2 years, and we've won 25 and 26 games, and we're on track for another good season. He is one of the absolute keys to the success of this program. And I don't know how well you know Tim, but what are your thoughts on him?
First off, I think he's great. I was just going to say, to add to what you're saying, at some point in the next couple of years, if not sooner, we'll be talking about the Nico Medved coaching tree and talking about where all these guys started and where they're going and how they ascend. Every coach, but Coach Shelton, and I knew he was working with the bigs, which is why I wanted to ask him when he brought up, Booth. And then I said, Kyle Jorgensen, who you've said is, oh my God, the development night and day. And he's getting a lot of plaudits from a lot of really good basketball writers and heavy thinkers. So no, his demeanor and how he's thoughtful about how he answers questions. I mean, that tells you there's a high basketball IQ, I feel, with the young men, but you can definitely tell there's a high IQ with this coaching staff, very much so.
Yeah, I like I said, he's a head coach in making, and there's a program headed to the new Pac-12 that is not investing very much in basketball right now in the Central Valley of California. and ultimately Tim would be a great fit, but until they fund that program better, it's a disaster. Hopefully things will turn around there. But he had some success in assistant with Justin Hudson at Fresno, obviously from the San Diego State coaching tree,
Oh
as
yeah.
well as working with Nico for a couple of years. When Nico told me he was hiring uh, that the job that summer, he said, I'm about to hit a home run," and that was it. Turned out to be Tim, and he is a home run, a great part of the staff. We've seen the defensive play of Colorado State improve since he's gotten here. We've seen what the big men are developing into, and I'm dying to see as he gets more and more involved. The coaching, the in-game coaching, they get to, Tim talked about how they, it's all about Colorado State. Well, it only has been about Colorado State. I looked up the numbers, Marty, with this team. This team has trailed in 160 minutes of play. They've trailed a total of 3 minutes, and the
Jeez.
biggest margin that they've trailed by is 1 point. They have
Wow.
not faced any adversity. They've come out of the chute well and led basically every game from start to finish. And that's unusual. I don't care who you're playing. That's really, really unusual. They haven't had to really change things from an in-game coaching perspective, but that's a remarkable statement on how well this team is doing right now.
Well, I want to ask you because I was going to maybe ask coach this, but I'll ask you this because I know a lot of times in football, conflating sports, that they say the defense usually leads early. Usually it's easier to get the defense on track than the offense. But if I heard right, CSU's offense obviously is clicking and doing well. The defense is kind of not lag necessarily, but is a little behind. Is that the case? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the focus of Ali being more of an offensive minded coach. And the system that they have in place requires, it's a lot of work for guys coming from outside the system. When the players they recruited, you heard Tim talk about it, it's not just the talent, but it's the types of players and the character. They find guys that want to share the ball, but they haven't necessarily played in this kind of offense before. And I think there was a lot of focus in the summer, mostly on that. And I think as the season goes on, you'll see a little more as Ali becomes more and more comfortable with what they're doing offensively. And they're not even, they don't even have everything in on the offensive side of the ball. It's hard. This isn't a professional program where you got guys 8 hours a day. You got 20 hours a
Mm-hmm.
week. And so I think you'll see more time spent defensively. And like Tim talked about, Jake's question, do you have any tricks up your sleeve? They'll start implementing more and more stuff that they did last year using the talent that they have. But I think that's a good question. I think that's the fun of watching a team develop, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and they always say there are schemes to defense, but I just remember growing up, they always said defense is about effort and about moving your feet. It's just about the want to and the grit to want to and take pride in playing defense, which I think Colorado State has done over the past couple of years. I wanted to ask you as well, since I said I didn't see the box score, how many guys played for CSU against Loyola? Did they play a full complement, the full
They
10 to
they
12?
played nine, basically, and then McConan and Slater got in at the end. But they played nine. You would have seen if Mbemba was there, you would have seen 10 players,
Right.
and I think they're pretty set. The rotation is actually looking really, really solid right now. The first seven have been great. JoJo McIver coming in at point guard. JoJo got 18 out of the 40 minutes at point guard. Rex Steiner only got 22 against Loyola,
Mhm.
and so that was really, really good for his development. And we're seeing, the solidity of the starting five have been fantastic. Kiadulis and Butler coming off the bench are really good as sixth and seventh players. McIver and Joppa as the big, and McIver as the backup point guard. The pair of McIver and Butler in the backcourt have been great defensively, and so we're seeing, the coaching staff, I think, starting to figure out how to use these guys and getting the rotation sound. Um, it's been fun to watch, and it was good against Loyola. They were up 26 26 or 26 points, I believe, with about 10 minutes to go. And so they, I mean, they absolutely dominated. And Loyola's not playing great right now, but they're a decent program. Obviously, everybody knows about them, having been to the Final Four in the last 10 years. But it's coming together, and the rotation, I think, is pretty sound. And now it's a matter of getting Rashawn. You heard about Tim talking about Rashawn. It's getting him fit in, and it's going to be interesting to see. The age-old dilemma is, does a player lose his starting position when they get hurt, right?
Wally bit, baby.
Think about it. Rashawn was the starter, Jorgensen the bench player. I'm dying to see how they do it in the grand scheme of things. It really doesn't matter because everybody's going to play and everybody's going to be given a chance to participate and contribute. And Rashawn will give them that physical presence in the paint, the communication, the leadership, all that stuff. Kyle's been fantastic. So, it'll be fun to watch how those two play, not just share a position, but maybe play together. Your question was a very good question. It'll be fun to see if they can fit together.
I would love to see that, but also, like I said, you never want your best player hurt. But I'm saying, has this opened a window, given him an opportunity to kind of see, again, for a young Kyle Jorgensen, who again has been getting a lot of love of late, saying, boy, his growth from last year to this year has been something else. A lot of people thinking, and again, like you said, he was player of the week. So are we at the point where we've kind of got an embarrassment of riches, that we've got some great things we can do and leverage? So I'm excited. And then I'm asking you, because you are the basketball guru. They always say that styles make for fights. So I know that the intention of the schedule is to play some different styles that CSU may not see or may eventually see down the road. Are you liking the scheduling, what you're seeing of different teams and how they do things that challenges CSU to stretch themselves to see other systems in place that they may have to face?
The first three games, you want to get three games where you get the teams that are going to give you at least a little bit of a game. No, we didn't play any D2 teams. We played three teams that were basically stylistically different, like you said, and then an early road trip. The exhibition game was very, very useful in terms of getting at Creighton, getting the team used to going on the road, and they really handled it well at Loyola. Like I said, Loyola not playing well, but a good place to play, a good crowd, a great arena, a great venue. It was fun. 5,000 seat arena, and it gets pretty loud even with only 3,000 people there. So, but a good experience there. And now you're on. You come home, you get DU, another little bit of a difference, and DU will always be a challenge. They always get up for an in-state game. And I think that's good. But then the rubber really hits the road in the Bahamas with Virginia Tech, possibly St. Mary's, Wichita State, possibly Vanderbilt. You're looking at a bunch of top programs, top 50 programs, and this is where the rubber will really hit the road. And I think the team. I think they've lined the team up. They've sorted things out in terms of getting the rotation. I'm especially impressed with what Kiadulis and Butler are doing coming off the bench. They're playing at the level of starters, and they're understanding their roles, and they're making impact as if they're starters. And that's what you want. You've got a rotation of 7 that is fantastic right now. And with McIver coming on, Joppa does we saw what Nicola could do last year coming off the bench, giving 10 good minutes, and with Mbemba, I think they're poised to make that next leap, both defensively, both offensively, and then I think move forward through the rest of through this battle for Atlanta. So I'm dying to see how they do there.
No, me too. I'm excited. I was my little thing. It's always darkest before it's pitch black, but I was gonna actually put a CSU back to being a hoop school, with a question mark, because feels a little like that. But anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be both. Football's going to come. It'll get there. I'm solidly behind John Weber and Amy Parsons.
Oh, I am too.
They're going to make things happen. So what you got? Anything cooking before we go? We got to call it a day.
No, I have nothing else. I will just get on with my normal routine of doing things. My son, the only thing I'll say is now my son transitioned into basketball, which he's excited about playing. So I'm excited about watching him play some high school hoops. So it should be a lot of fun.
You got to let me know when I'm going to be able to see you. Got to get you your mug.
Yes, I want the mug. So, I'm coming up for some games. Are you kidding me? I'm going to be up there. I love.
Well, I know you'll be here for the CU game, but
well, you know what? I won't, because that's the
No.
night of my son's football banquet. I looked at the schedule and I'm like, really? I mean, so no, and I've got to be there for my son's football. Otherwise, yeah. And the banquet's not till 6, but I don't think I can scream down I-25, with a 2-hour game and make it in time. Believe me, I was looking at the schedule saying, oh, I'm definitely one, because the past couple of years I haven't gone to the CU game because it's been a weeknight and my hours at the time were not conducive to doing that. So it's like, oh, great, I catch a break, and then I get the notice about the banquet, and I'm like, not that weekend. But anyways, first world problems, as I like to say.
All right, we'll figure it out though. We'll get you your mug. They are nice.
Yes.
Anyway,
Limited
thanks
edition
again.
mug.
Everybody, thanks for joining us, everybody, on Monday Morning Cup of Coffee Tuesday edition. It won't be the last Tuesday edition. There'll be some scheduling issues down the road, but thanks again to my great co-host Marty Lenz. It's always a pleasure, young man.
Well, I always enjoy being on with you. I learn more from you every day about basketball, which I love. I love learning stuff. So this is great. Love it.
And of course, thanks to Tim Shelton for joining us. What a great young man. We'll see everybody next week, next Monday. Go Rams.
Go Rams.